her mother has dementia and obviously cannot consent. Plus, it's incest. It's just full on rape. It's full on rape. And that's why this news is trending so much. I've been mulling over how I want to do this segment in my head nonstop for the last 24 hours, okay? This topic is one that I need to handle somewhat delicately because there are a lot of people who have used this individual, who have used this story to push what I view as being harmful narratives. And while the individual in question, Chris Chan, who we will get into in a moment for those that are uninitiated on this drama, of which we just did a poll and many in my chat right now are, is a bad person who has done very bad things. However, I think that the culture that has sort of surrounded this individual is extremely toxic and helps sort of give birth to one of the most shitty aspects of internet culture in existence, I think. But I'm going to do my best not to oversimplify it, because it isn't quite as simple and cut and dry as the people who follow this individual are a bunch of pieces of shit, no life, neckbeards who have nothing better to do than sit on kiwi farms all day and just gossip and spy on and stalk a certain person, right? I'm not gonna make it that cut and dry. I want to make things a little bit more nuanced, okay? So I'm gonna tell as much of the story as I know without getting too deep into it that it becomes pointless and kind of redundant. You know, that we're like, there's no reason to go into the whole like entire story of Chris Chan. I can very easily sort of abbreviate or abridge the story. But I guess let's get right into it. And after that, I'll explain why I'm talking about it, and then the current news that just dropped yesterday, and you know, why I'm discussing that as well. Here we go. I'm going to preface this by saying the individual we're discussing is transgender. She is a trans woman, or so claims to be, and I'll get into why I say that in a moment, who I will be referring to, at least in the original, like, beginning part of the story, by the dead name, and using they, them pronouns, because Chris Chan does just the same thing, and refers to her past self in the past, pre-transition, by he, him pronouns. I won't be doing that, but also by the dead name, all right? I'll be doing this for the sake of telling the story and helping to make things make a little bit more sense, because as you can see here, the story of this individual is so long and so unbelievably documented that things start to get pretty fucking confusing after a while. Gets a little bit confusing after a while. And I find that this distinction in terms of time periods does do a good job of helping to, kind of keep things in order, especially if it's me telling the story. So I'm only on part 4 to give you guys an idea. I started watching last night the this is like the de facto Chris Chan documentary. And yeah, you can kind of see here, each episodes is around 40 minutes, sometimes a little longer, and it's ongoing, and we're currently on episode 58. So there's a lot to get into here. Chris Chan was originally short for Christian Weston Chandler. However, she now goes by Christine Weston Chandler, still using Chris Chan as a moniker, sort of. So we will be referring to her as Chris Chan for the sake of brevity and for familiarity, as well as to avoid any complications with like dead name and current name and whatnot. It's also very confusing because it's my mind is so jumbled right now. It's also very confusing because Chris Chan refers to her past self by her dead name, like frequently, to the extent that She believes that there's some time travel shit involved in alternate dimensions, and that she's going to go to another dimension where her OC character, her original character, character Sonichu, who's a mix of Pikachu and Sonic, exists and has battles with deities. She does claim she's had battles with deities, like gods and stuff like that, while driving her car. I believe that's what that was her excuse when she pepper sprayed a person and also ran a person over with her car. She believes that a dimensional merge is going to come soon, that the dimension where her character Sonichu exists, as well as the other characters in that story and the real life, are going to merge. She believes that when people die, they go to the Sonichu dimension. That's just a little bit of like an appetite wetter there, just to get you a little bit enticed. Are you guys interested now? Wait, hold on, chat. Those of you guys who knew nothing about Chris Chan prior to this segment, are you interested now? Are you interested now? Because after hearing that, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I'm starting to see why people are so interested in this individual now. Okay. All right. This is a little bit more interesting. So, all right. Chris Chan is, as you might have heard, on the autism spectrum. High functioning autism, perhaps on the lower functioning end of that part of the spectrum. And I say this in the least offensive way I possibly can, because unfortunately, Chris Chan's autism is inextricably, I can't pronounce that word, inseparably relevant to this entire story, to this entire saga, because it is probably the motivation behind 99% of the events that happen in this entire story. It is impossible to like separate that fact from this story. It is impossible to not bring it up. If anyone wants to try to call me ableist for this, I mean, you're welcome to, and I would invite you to try to explain the situation to anyone without referencing the fact that she has autism, okay? Because it is entirely relevant to this entire story. So, Chris Chan is an individual who I believe is now in their early to mid-30s. But in the past, at the beginning of this story, it all started a long time ago, when Chris Chan started to get involved with the internet. And this is old internet shit. Chris Chan was active on the internet and putting out content before the cult of sort of stalking around her had even existed, going all the way back to the early 2000s, and I believe even the late 90s. She had been 39. Wow, almost 40. That's crazy. Yeah, she's been around for a long time, okay? 39 years old. Whew! All right. So around the age of 19 or 20, Chris Chan began uploading things to the internet. This ranged from videos showing off her Animal Crossing village called CWCville, Quickville, I guess would be the way to pronounce it. CWC standing for her initials at the time, Christian Weston Chandler, now standing for Christine Weston Chandler, showing off her room, which is, let me just, can we, let's just get a, so let's just put this on the screen for now while we, yeah, showing off, her room, which is, let's just say, easy to make fun of, okay? Let's just say this individual was quite easy to make fun of, but they existed on the internet and frequently uploaded content onto the internet to a degree that you would expect of, like, full-time YouTubers and online content creators today. Like, say what you want about Chris Chan. Way back in the day, when there was no money or popularity to make from creating content on the internet, they were doing it at an unbelievable pace and with an unbelievably high quality compared to other internet content made at the time. Like, yeah, to be fair, pretty damn impressive. I was very surprised to see how dedicated Chris Chan was to creating different types of content and uploading it to the internet back in the day when there was literally no incentive whatsoever to do it besides, let's be honest, the ramblings of a very lonely person who hoped that maybe someone would stumble across this stuff and see it, which is, sort of comforting. In the beginning, Chris Chan's story is honestly pretty tragic, from what I've seen. I'm 4 parts into the I'm 4 parts into the story, and I gotta say, Chris Chan seems like, so far, besides a few things I'll bring up in a moment, a pretty sympathetic person. They are a person who has autism, who perhaps has some very easy to make fun of interests, who occasionally engages in some embarrassing actions and isn't the best with social interaction. And around 2007, an entire community of people built a stalker legion, essentially, to follow every step this person makes, document it, and then later down the line get involved in ways that are just beyond reprehensible. However, as it would turn out, and this doesn't at all excuse any of the behaviors of the people that have been relentlessly stalking this person for so long, and it is stalking. Anyone who's deluded themselves, any of the Christorians who hang out on these forums and engage, document Chris Chan must be documented. Any of the people who do this and have deluded themselves into thinking it's not stalking, come on, it's stalking, all right? At least own it, okay? So regardless, she has been on the internet for a long time, and from what I'm seeing so far, she's been pretty, sympathetic. However, and someone in the YouTube chat just brought this up, she's been openly homophobic. Ironically, a lot, especially back in the past with a lot of the posts she would make, transphobic, racist a little bit, it would seem. Really weird racism, too. I'm not even going to try to describe it. And, sexual harassy, to the point where there was a woman that she was into in real life, who she would email back and forth. And it's very clear this woman only befriended and interacted with Chris Chan out of pity. And Chris Chan would regularly unwantedly touch and sexually harass this woman, to the point where there are emails, email chains, miles long, saying, "Please stop. I'm not interested in you. I want to be friends." Obviously, because she feels bad for Chris Chan. But you need to stop touching me when I say no. I've told you I'm not interested. You gotta stop this. And even beyond that, apparently she drew pornography of this woman as well. Chris Chan apparently drew pornography of them. I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm still only on part 4. Also, I've seen all of part 2. It's just that I clicked on it whenever I started the... Yeah, I think that was Megan. There's too many names and too many people involved to get, super deep into it. I did watch all of part 2, by the way. It's just that when I was looking for the playlist, I clicked on the video, so it, restarted in, the bar thing. I did not get to finish part 4, though. I'm still only midway through part 4. So I'm still behind on some things. But Chris Chan caught the attention of a lot of people back in 2007. And at first, it was more of a distanced interest, right? Something very similar to how people would follow Boogie, or Francis, the character that Boogie 2988 played back in the day. Or, if you guys have seen, and obviously these things are staged, Wings of Redemption or Darkside Phil, DSP, sort of staying back, but watching this very interesting shit show go down. It was stalky, sure, but nowhere even close to what it's gotten to now. Nowhere close to where it is now. So while Chris Chan may not be the best person, a horrible community, started to form. And at first, it was a little bit more admissible, but as time went on, these trolls that were really interested in documenting Chris Chan got even more excessive and even more involved. There are so many instances of these trolls getting involved that I could get into, but there are a few in particular I want to discuss, just to give you an idea of how bad things have gotten in the past. And of course, we'll catch up to what's happening relevantly now. So, there have been female trolls as well as male trolls who have catfished her into sending nudes and masturbation videos, etc., convincing her to assault her mother and friends and other people, manipulating her into doing all sorts of horrible things. A 13-year-old Chris Dorian catfished Chris Chan as pretending to be a woman who is of age. And this 13-year-old boy, I heard rumors that the 13-year-old boy was the younger brother of one of the trolls and the stalkers that were following Chris Chan, and that the older brother convinced this kid Blue Spike to do that. But from what my friend Ethan, who has watched this whole documentary recently, told me, Blue Spike, the name of this particular 13-year-old, probably not 13 anymore, did this out of his own volition. So, whew, fuck. Apparently, she shoved a box of crayons up her ass on camera because they asked. Yeah, shit like that is what these people sort of convince Chris Chan to do. And there's even more stuff like this. Tons of stuff like this. We're talking about an anthology that goes back 15 years plus. All right? This shit has been going on for longer than some of the people involved have been alive. There are people in chat right now who are younger than this entire story. This entire thing that's been going on. All right? Frankly, I'm younger than it's been going on. I'm 22. Chris Chan was my age when she started getting attention from like people on the internet, when the cult started to form around her. And she'd been doing it for a few years prior, like the Sonichu stuff and the crazy shit. Like, there was a thing that she would do called the Love Quest. All right? Well, it technically started in 1998, but the cult around her started in 2007, Doge Professor. So she would do this thing called the Love Quest, where she would make a sign saying, like, I want a girlfriend, a boyfriend. It was, I want a boyfriend-free girl, because she believed that every woman that was hot already had a boyfriend, and so she created a term for a phobia of women who have boyfriends or might have boyfriends called noviophobia, which I believe is the novio is Spanish for boyfriend or something. It's really crazy. God, there's so much. I'm trying so hard to keep this together, guys. I'm trying so hard. But there's so much to it, okay? I'm doing my best here. You understand that this is like me trying to explain the entire story of The Simpsons in one segment, okay? Like, I'm doing my best here, okay? I'm really doing my best. The lore is fucking immense, all right? The lore is beyond immense, okay? If it wasn't such, like, hot news right now, I would take the time to prepare and study for like a week before doing this segment, but we're not doing that, okay? Yeah, it's 50 hours of lore. All right, 60 hours almost of lore, okay? I'm doing my best. She invented her own version of Spanish. She believes in alternate dimensions. She's created it's wild, okay? Now, Chris Chan and the antics surrounding her is actually the origin of the website Kiwi Farms, which is a forum that was initially created with the intention of acting as sort of a community, a hub, as well as a more organized place to archive the events happening in Chris Chan's life, whether it be naturally happening on its own. Like, you know how in nature documentaries, the people doing the documentary are meant to sort of like Like, if a lion is taking down a zebra, you're not supposed to get involved if you're doing a nature documentary. You have to just sit back and let it happen. That's nature, right? The people involved with Chris Chan tend to break that rule. There are some purists out there that are very against that and say, do not get involved. Just sit back, document what happens, and do not get involved. Let whatever happens, happen. But most people don't follow that rule, it seems, or at least a good amount of people involved in this community don't break that rule. So Kiwi Farms was created, notably at the time, to follow this person, but it ended up branching out to more people who are referred to as lol cows. And lol cows are individuals who you milk for the lulz because they're very cringy, they engage in all sorts of silly antics, and you can milk a lot of lulz from them, right? If you guys have seen ContraPoints' cringe video, then you guys probably all know about this. Now, let's not sugarcoat it. This is a community of people who wanted to stalk and harass a autistic person because this person was very vulnerable and easy to make fun of. That's what this community was. And frankly, for the most part, it's what it still is. Like, yeah. Now, you may nowadays know about Kiwi Farms as a place where a lot of Nazis hang out and make threads about every single left-leaning YouTuber, because to these Nazi types, they like to pretend that, like, left-leaning YouTubers are on the same level of cringe as this. Everyone's a little cringe, but it's mostly just become a stalking forum for anyone who is left of Nazi at this point, it seems. Or at least anyone who is left of Nazi and cares about politics. Frankly, anyone who cares about politics, if I'm being completely honest. Actually, let's be completely real here. Quite a few right-wing, popular, and well-liked right-wing content creators have threads on Kiwi Farms where they're shit on constantly. Frankly, I don't think Kiwi Farms likes anybody. So I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like a right-wing site. It's just sort of a degenerate site. And that whole community came from Chris Chan here and the stalking of this individual. Now, let's get into some more recent news, because I feel like I've talked about enough of stuff going on in the past and enough setup for my thesis on this segment for us to just get right into what's relevant here, all right? So, Chris Chan's dad passed away a while ago, and for a long time, Chris Chan's dementia-having, like, 90-year-old mom has been her caretaker. Yeah, back in 2011, the dad died. Has been her caretaker, right? And there is a group of people in the Chris Chan, in the Christorian community, who call themselves the Watchmen, basically. And these Watchmen act as, like, protectors of Chris Chan. They've befriended Chris Chan, they hang out with Chris Chan, they do their best to try to keep people who may have malicious intentions towards Chris Chan from doing those things. They've been called the Watchdogs, now they're called the Watchmen or something like that. It's weird shit like that. It's kind of LARPy, but frankly, of all the people that are invested in this entire thing, I'd say they're probably the most defensible, considering they are stalkers, kind of, but they're seeing this person who's clearly very vulnerable, and they're trying to, like, protect them from bad things that can happen to them. However, Chris Chan is very trusting. Very, very trusting. And has a tendency to divulge very personal, private, and embarrassing things to the public, which only gives more ammo to those that want to, you know, stalk her, right? And recently, now granted, it is plausible that this audio is fake, in the sense that maybe she was coerced into saying these things, because she is quite coercible, to say the least. I believe at one point, I don't know how we haven't mentioned it yet. You see this thing hanging around Chris Chan's neck here? This is the Sonichu medallion. It's made out of like clay and acrylic, and it is a medallion of the OC character Sonichu that Chris Chan invented. Someone convinced Chris Chan, I believe, to smash it and shove the shards up her ass on video, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was the thing that happened? Right? Any Christorians here want to confirm that? That was Blue Spike? Yeah, that was the 13-year-old who convinced Chris Chan to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very fucked up. Very, very fucked up. So considering that this was something that she was coerced into doing by these people, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe she was coerced into saying this stuff, but I doubt it because the people who got this audio are part of the group that have been sort of like protectors of Chris Chan for a while now. Who knows, though? It could have been like a long con. I don't know. Regardless, the reason why we're talking about this, the reason why Chris Chan did what, in all caps, was trending #1 on Twitter for a day, for 24 hours straight, is this audio. This is the only source of the audio that I could find. It's from a channel named Gibby. The video is Chris Chan admitted to sleeping with his mother in audio and text. Barb sent to hospital. That kind of exposes some of what happened there. The reason why this is relevant. Trigger warning. Rape. Very obvious trigger warning. Incestuous dementia rape incoming. Let's just jump right into it. Here's the audio.
So yeah, she's got really sensitive G-spot because apparently I don't believe that Mr. C, any of her past boyfriends and ex-husbands, they haven't really reached and hit her G-spot really with their dicks. Approached her with care and caution, so I just gave her comfort and talked with her, and we just branched out slow and steady, and then I encouraged her positively, let her make the first move, and she wanted to do it.
And she did? Really? She made the first move?
Yeah. I think she was partially confused at one point, but then she came around, obviously. But it took us a few nights to figure out what made what feel right and what didn't feel right. And
does your mother enjoy it?
Yeah, she's having a good time. Literally.
She is.
When asked if you were from what I've heard, the audio goes on, and she apparently claims to have, she goes into detail about apparently being the only person to ever make her mom orgasm, and how they've done it 11 or 12 times at this point. Her mother has dementia and obviously cannot consent, plus it's incest. It's just full-on rape. It's full-on rape. The phone call, the original phone call is like 13 minutes long. We don't need to listen to the whole thing. All right? The long and short of it is, Chris Chan has repeatedly raped her mom. And that's why this news is trending so much. So what do we have here? We have here. Let's find a more recent picture of Chris Chan, because, and I know I'm gonna get canceled for this, but there is an elephant in the room we got to talk about, and the reason why the left needs to discuss this and not be too afraid to talk about this issue, because the right is, and they're using it for their own narrative. Chris Chan is the embodiment, the physical embodiment of everything that the right and transphobes broadly try to paint of the trans community. She is a sexual predator who is aggressively cringy, this may be mean, but not exactly pretty on the eyes, to say the least. I don't think it's a controversial statement. And who has a following of mostly right-wing people who have created an entire stalking community from her, who that has branched off into other communities of far-right people who engage in stalking and harassment against basically any content creator or celebrity who is left-leaning, or, for that matter, autistic, trans, depressed, or going through any hard time in their life and has any type of public facing side to things, right? Yeah. And Chris Chan's not a particularly good person. She isn't. But for many people, as much as I hate to say it, she is a representative of the trans community. She is. Now, there are a lot of people that are Christorians, a lot of people that call themselves Christorians, as they're called, who are, more on the left-leaning side and pro-trans. I'm not going to try to paint everybody who follows this story as being a transphobic Nazi. That would obviously be a very, not only just a gross simplification of the culture around this person, but uncharitable to say the least. However, even the very pro-trans, even trans people who follow Chris Chan and are Christorians don't believe that Chris Chan is trans and refuse to use she, her pronouns because, well, she's fucking delusional on many levels. The whole, there's multiple dimensions and Sonichu exists in one of them, and people go to the Sonichu dimension when they die, and she's going to the Sonichu dimension, and the dimensions are going to cross over. She believes that she is Sonichu, that she's going to become Sonichu when she dies or ascends or something. It's crazy. Chris Chan is, as I said before, the embodiment of the delusional, crazy, cringy person that the right or transphobes try to make trans people out to be. And it's just, there's even people who are pretty pro-trans tend to not gender her by she, her pronouns or refer to her by Christine. And I understand. If there was anybody on this earth, anybody on this fucking planet who claimed to be trans but actually wasn't and legitimately was just crazy and had convinced themselves that they were a woman, it would probably be Chris Chan. Can we all agree on that? If that right-wing stereotype, if a person who 100% all lines matched fit the conservative stereotype of trans people, if that person existed, if that stereotype was real, it would be Chris Chan. However, in my research on this topic, I have found that every source, every person talking about this news, talking about Chris Chan's history, and talking about this current news, has referred to Chris Chan by not only her dead name, but by he, him pronouns, which I have not done, besides when referring to the past, and even then I've still used she, her pronouns, really, and I've justified it as such. I disagree with this. I'm going to argue why I disagree with this. If you're watching and you're a Christorian and you're more right-leaning, or you're not really on board with the trans rights thing, you're not really in favor of trans people broadly, which I think is very possible. I think this video is going to bring a lot of new people to my channel. A lot of new people are going to end up watching my streams, seeing my videos because of this. For a little background, I'm a very left-wing content creator. I'm very pro-trans, very pro-LGBT. I talk about a lot of these things and make videos responding to right-wing content creators. It's what I do. I think, regardless of any of the shit Chris Chan has done, any of the plausibility that Chris Chan is just delusional and crazy and isn't a real trans person or whatever, I think despite all of that, we should still use she, her pronouns and refer to her by like her preferred name when it comes to like the trans thing. And the reason for this is honestly pretty simple. Let's take someone who I would argue is pretty comparable. Eat That Pussy 445, EDP. EDP is a pedophile who wanted to rape, I believe, a 13-year-old girl and was caught in the act of trying to do that. However, he's black. Now, despite the fact that EDP is an awful person, would it be acceptable to then say EDP, like to start being racist towards EDP, to calling him the N-word, and saying that, calling him the N-word, saying he deserves to be a slave or lynched or some shit like that? Is that okay? Obviously not. Because if you start calling any black person, regardless of who they are, the N-word and saying racist shit to them, you're just being racist. To everybody. You can't be racist to one individual person and say, but no, it's just against this one person because he's such a bad person. He's a pedophile. It's okay, right? So let's bring this over to trans people. If you're willing to misgender Chris Chan and dead name her, etc., and do things that you wouldn't do to say any, like let's say to any other trans person who you find passes well and is a legitimate trans person, you are establishing a sort of conditional acceptance for trans people. That's what I call it. Conditional acceptance. The idea that for you to view a trans person as being valid, they have to reach an arbitrary threshold of effort or non-cringiness or mental fortitude in order for their identity to be valid. And no, not the same. Trans people aren't a race. They're a group of people who are regularly discriminated against. That's why they're comparable. In what way do you think I'm trying to imply that trans people are a race? They're a group who are discriminated against frequently. That's why that's why they're comparable. I have a feeling NDO64, who just said that in YouTube chat, is probably new here. You'll figure things out quickly, okay? So, the argument I would like to make is, 1, more left-leaning people need to be talking about this. I get that it comes off as this no-life, neckbeard, right-wing, stalker, Kiwi Farms bullshit. I understand that it comes off that way, and in many ways it is, but do you want those people to be the only individuals discussing this? Do you want the right to be the only people talking about this? To be the only people giving their takes on this? To be the only people educating people about this topic? A topic which, by the way, is now getting way more popular with normies because of the one-day-long #1 trending on Twitter, Chris Chan did what in all caps that just happened yesterday. Of course not. You want left-leaning people talking about it. More left-leaning people should be talking about it. We should not leave this massive topic up only to the right to discuss. Now, I don't think we should be doing the whole Christorian documentary thing, but I do think when the topic of something like this becomes relevant, we ought to discuss it. I got so much shit for announcing I was going to do a segment on this person today, on this news. I got so much shit saying, Zan, please don't talk about this. She's already gotten so much shit. It's contributed to so much transphobia. Don't talk about that. Why? The reasons you're listing are why I should be talking about it as a left-leaning person. That's literally why we should be talking about it. Because right now, the only people talking about it are far-right people and normies who know nothing about politics and are kinda, whether they realize it or not, lending credence to a right-wing position. Right? So, Chris Chan is a bad person. They suck. They're a rapist. They're a sexual harasser. They have assaulted people. They're delusional. They're cringy. There's so much you could go on. You could go on for literally 60 hours. However, if you claim to be pro-trans, when you engage in what would be transphobia to any other trans person towards Chris Chan, you're just being transphobic. And that makes you a transphobe. So stop. Stop if you don't want to be a transphobe. I imagine many of the people doing it are transphobic and will acknowledge that. But in the meantime, stop. Don't be transphobic if you don't want to be. I know it kind of feels like, maybe you're doing a favor for someone who's not exactly a good person if you're using their preferred pronouns, etc., etc. But properly gendering and not dead naming a trans person isn't doing them a favor. It's not being a bigot. Like, not calling a black pedophile the N-word isn't doing that person a favor. It's not being nice to them. It's just not being racist. Not being racist towards that person. It's not being a racist. Because engaging that behavior says more about you than it does about the person you're referring to. Notice how I've condemned the behavior of and educated my chat on the history of, fairly well, for as much as I know, about Chris Chan without engaging in transphobia towards Chris Chan. If I can do it, so can you. We can talk about how delusional she is without denying her gender identity. But regardless, if you are someone who claims to be pro-trans, I would ask that you make your support unconditional for trans identities. Someone shouldn't have to reach a certain threshold of being a good person for you not to be transphobic to them, just as you probably wouldn't have a threshold to not be racist towards a black person who's a bad person, right? So, I imagine there's a lot of stuff here that, you're attacking people for immutable characteristics. Attack people for actual reasons to attack them, not immutable characteristics like being trans, their race, sexuality, etc., right? Anyway, I think there's probably a lot of stuff that I left out because I didn't write any notes for this segment. I went all off the top of my head. This is all improv, just based off of what I've learned about the situation and everything. So hopefully the segment came out well. It is such a crazy thing to get into. If you are actually genuinely more interested in this entire story, Gino Samu here, or I think they go by EL 2.1, I think now. I don't know. If you look up Chris Chan documentary or anything like that, you will find this. All right. Gino Samuel is their name. Sorry. It's a long watch, but if you're looking for a new time sink to entertain yourself, I mean, there's plenty of material here. I know I'll be watching the whole thing. I'm going to be watching this whole thing because I'm already invested. Let's be honest. I'm already invested. I'm going to watch the whole thing. So, if you're new here, please leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon. Follow me on my social media, linked in the description, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can also join my fan Discord if you want to talk to me or engage with my community. Link is also in the description. And of course, if you've got the money for it, you don't need it for anything else, and you just don't know what to do with it. If you want to, you can always toss some money my way to support the stream by donating, subscribing on my website, or gifting a sub. Super chatting on YouTube, hitting the join button to become a channel member on YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, all the things, all linked in the description. If you feel like it, it's always appreciated. And thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.